Ethiopia is gearing up towards its all-inclusive national dialogue. What's the psychological makeup of Ethiopians for this national dialogue? My guest today is Dr. Samuel Wolde. He will help us understand the situation. He's licensed clinical neuropsychologist, a professor and a lecturer at the Grand Canyon University. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Addis Dialogue with the program. I'm Shifarao Lako. Do stay with us. Doc, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So I really want to start our discussion with your observation of Ethiopians' culture of using dialogues, roundtable discussions to solve issues. So can you walk me through some of the brief observations that you made in this regard?
Right. This is a tricky question when it involves Ethiopians and Ethiopian culture as far as communication or dialogue or compromise goes. Even the first-class world diplomats made an observation a long time. Ethiopians are very difficult people when it comes to coming together for dialogue because they are not built to compromise. Ethiopians want to win, at any cost. They are like, they don't want to give any room, any space, whatever thought or idea or wish or desire or goal they have, they want it to win. So the winning sense, the winning spirit is there in Ethiopians' culture, and I always say that was very beneficial when we fought the foreigners who came to invade our territory and our national interests. Long time ago, our grandfathers and even our forefathers, they fought because they didn't want to give any room to invaders. So that the winning spirit, wanted to overtake things. It's good in that sense, but when it comes to communication and dialogue and compromise, Ethiopians like that kind of art. So, that's what makes it difficult for Ethiopians to come together and find a common ground in spite of their personal or group interests. So, in that regard, our culture needs to be developed as far as understanding, okay, I have my own interest and you have your own interest. Let's come together and find what is bigger, what is effective, what is in the long run going to be good for all of us as a group and as a nation. So as far as the Ethiopian culture, people have that tendency not to let others to come and meet them in between. So that sense of winning, I'm going to invade, I'm going to accomplish that greatness at the expense of the other person. The winning in Ethiopian context seems like I'm going to be a winner when you lose. That kind of mentality won't do anything good when we are facing this great time and going into this national dialogue. People have to cultivate the idea that for us to win as a nation, as a group, we have to understand the communication has to be in the sense of compromise. Okay, I have mine and you have mine. Let's find out which one is better, or by bringing all ideas, all thoughts together, let's find out how we can develop something bigger than what I want as a person, as a group, or what you want as a person and as a group. Okay. So that's kind of a tricky thing, as far as the Ethiopian culture and communication or negotiation goes. So we have a long way to go, but I think we have a good start to build on.
When is communication done or achieved, or for communication to take place, what must be there?
I think that's a great question, Shifarao, and even the word communication involves community. Without a real, true community, there's no communication. For us to communicate, we have to commune. That's even the very word implies communication cannot happen by isolation. Communication is not a one-way street. even the word commune, in order for me to commune or communicate, I have to accept it happens within the context of community. Exactly. So understanding that really solves a lot of problems. When we communicate, we have to also perceive and understand our communication can be effective as long as we have this strong sense of community. We come to build as a community. We come to further our interest as a community instead of individual interests. So for the communication to happen, first understanding of the very foundation, the communication arises out of the community. Okay. All right? Yeah. Comes out of the commune. When that happens, the thought intercourse, the give and take, art will take place easily. So when we think about communication, for the communication to be effective, we have to also understand it takes two people, two groups. It is not like, in the case of communication, we cannot say, I am the speaker, I'm the one dispensing the knowledge, everything has to come out of me. Your job is to sit and listen and go with what I gave you. That's not communication. That's just addressing, a thought and kind of bringing this top-bottom kind of approach. Yeah, that's the one way. For effective communication to be done, there should be understanding, okay, I give and I receive. I share, I speak, and I take time to sit down and listen to you. And effective communication won't happen unless there's a feedback loop in the process. Okay. So my communication, for me to say my communication is done, I have to wait and listen the response and get the feedback from others. So that's what communication means and what effective communication looks like. It's not like one-way street. There should be a feedback. The reason for that is whatever I say, I send signal, yeah? Exactly. I say the word. The interpretation is in your mind. Whatever I say, I don't know how you perceive my communication and speech or engagement. It is you who's going to make that sense of, understanding, because the meaning is in your mind. Mm-hmm. So for me to say, what, I have an effective communication, I have to listen from you as well. I have to understand whatever I say, what kind of sense it gave you. So for me to have this kind of respect, it's not only me or knowledge comes out of me and goes one way, but for me as an effective communication, I have to acknowledge there should be a feedback. There should be a response. There should be a time where I sit back and understand how my communication affected you. When that happens, the sender sends the signal, the receiver send back the feedback. When we have that kind of feedback loop, then we say the communication was effective. So first of all, the communication comes out of the community. Mm-hmm. All right, for effective communication to be done, there should be sense of community, sense of unity, sense of us instead of us versus them. That's the foundation. The second one is communication is not done unless I receive your feedback, I receive your reaction, I receive your response. As I said, whatever I say, that get the meaning in your mind, in your head, based on your experience, based on your previous understanding, based on how you perceive yourself in your environment. You give meaning to my communication, and I have to sit back and wait for your feedback. So that's just how effective communication takes place.
Thank you, Professor, for that wonderful explanation. Now, as you know, Ethiopians are, gearing up toward the first of its kind, all-inclusive national dialogue. So what should Ethiopians bring along with them, and how should Ethiopians kick off this much anticipated national dialogue?
I congratulate all Ethiopians to be on the verge of getting involved in the nation's building and future, construction, and it's a great thing because everybody has value. Yeah, everybody has their voice. So, without involving the nation and giving everybody a chance to speak about their vision of the country, to speak about their grievance and disappointment that happened in their life and in history, you cannot ignore that aspect of the personal experience, the family, and the generational experience. So it's a great time, to address the grievance, to address their vision and interest, what they would like to see happening in their life and the nation. So this is a great opportunity. My fear sometimes goes to, I hope this idea won't be hijacked by political interest and some people, even the government. So that's just the foundation, the very good time. And I encourage people to get involved. And this is, as you said, once in a lifetime as far as the Ethiopians and their history concerned. So with that comes, a great responsibility as well,
Absolutely.
Privilege, of course, appointed time, of course, very historical moment, of course, but it comes with a lot of great responsibility for Ethiopians to treat it that way. Sometimes there are great ideas, great initiatives, but they don't go anywhere because of the application and the individual's participation and the idea being hijacked by people and there's some interest. So the responsibility is to understand the time and to get involved and to protect this idea from being hijacked. How do they do that? The idea has to come from instead of up down, the bottom up.
Okay.
And people are involved from the grassroots and the bottom. Any change will last for a long time, and sometimes I see even the Ethiopian government trying to bring change from and down. They assign ministers and great poets, and they try to train them to be kind of fit for that position. That tells me people are not ready or assigned without being right people for that position. So when you train people, when you address people from the the bottom up, from the grassroots area, any change will have a root to stand a test of time. And when you mobilize people from bottom up, your good idea have a backbone, and people really protect that. So for this dialogue to go farther and be effective, I think all the people needs to be engaged. And instead of agendas coming from top down, it's good to give people a chance. As I said, everybody has a vision. Everybody has some kind of interest, what they would like to see in the nation life. And some even have a grievance that they haven't addressed properly, which needs to be addressed, needs to be given opportunity and a platform for people to raise and bring up those concerns. So this is a good time. The protection from people's standpoint should be there, because I think a lot of groups, a lot of political agenda, a lot of sentiment here and there are waiting to seize the moment and hijack this great initiative for their own interests. So the people have to get involved from the bottom down. And also to understand, as they come and get ready for this great opportunity, as I said, people, when they come to talk, they have to be also coming with understanding the other person also have their vision, their interest, We have to be respectful. Otherwise, it's going to be like a turf war, you know, and for the negotiation to go further, for this great initiative to become like a foundational work for the nation building, the groups, individuals, regions, interest, they have to come with understanding, okay, I have mine, and the other person also, they have their own. You know, as much as I would like to speak about my interest and what I see as a vision from my end, I also have to be disciplined and respectful to listen to the other group. And a great thought also emerges when we bring our ideas together. Yeah? When ideas get processed in a very respectful manner, with the understanding of, at the end of the day, what matters is our nation kind of attitude, good things can emerge from that kind of dialogue. So that's what I see as important foundational work when the nation is gearing up to get engaged in this national dialogue. My thought might be, you know, necessary, but there should be some bigger thought that can come at the end of the day after we're having dialogue and exchange of ideas. So that's very important. So great opportunity for the nation, at the same time a great time to be aware, okay, this movement can be hijacked. How do you protect? Let's bring it from bottom up and let people get involved, let them have their day, you know, in this dialogue, in this conversation. Let's find out, you know, how we can develop a consensus, you know, by bringing all the interest and group into the table. So sometimes we kind of have a way, you know, we pick interest group or politicians or regions, and we think, you know, the nation will be okay. But as long as people are not involved, or they don't have that sense of perception that I was part of that, there's a sense of neglect, you know, a sense of, you know, being left behind. That also causes germinate some negative idea. Okay, I wasn't involved in that process. That means I wasn't, you know, fully engaged as an Ethiopian. Then I have my interest. My interest didn't get a chance to on the table. Then I'll find other ways to achieve that purpose, and people go into some negative and destructive kind of way of, you know, holding the country's progress moving ahead. So it's this is a great time, at the same time a great responsibility for the nation, the people that facilitate this dialogue.
Okay, Professor, thank you for those wonderful ideas. Now let me ask you this question as well. Have you made some kind of survey in this regard? I mean, when it comes to the psychological makeup of Ethiopians to embrace this wonderful national dialogue, you know, especially as something that can help solve these lingering issues that have persisted in Ethiopia for such a long time?
You know, I haven't done any kind of qualitative or quantitative formal research or survey, but these are the questions I hear, and also just watching and interacting with people. So there's, you know, excitement, at the same time anxiety is going on. You know, the anxiety is that people don't know how this is going to turn up. The excitement is, as we talk, this is the first opportunity the nation has seen. And, you know, and I say that's okay, that's human experience. You know, when we have something that is in the future as human beings, we should have some anxiety, all right? You know, we should have some understanding of fear. But the thing is, if we let the anxiety take over, then we cannot do anything cognitively and coherently because we get crippled. And you know, my encouragement for a lot of people is change your anxiety into some kind of a goal-oriented, you know, plan. If you have anxiety about this thought, start organizing your thought, you know, as a person. And anxiety is a good thing that reminds us that we haven't done our homework properly. You know, a student gets anxious before the exam, you know, every time I have done a lot of lecture. Every time when I meet my new class, new students, and I have some anxiety. You know, that's just a normal thing. That reminds me maybe I haven't done everything I should to prepare myself for that class or for that engagement. So the anxiety is a normal process, human reaction. It's indicative that you haven't done everything that you need for that goal, for that purpose. You haven't done your homework, you haven't done your research, maybe you haven't done, you know, proper outlining how you can engage into this amazing opportunity ahead. So I remind people, okay, it's good to be anxious because it's in the future, you don't know, it's unknown. And don't let that the unknown, the fear of the unknown, tide you up from getting involved. Use that energy into doing some research, how a nation can be done or move forward with effective dialogue. Just learn about other nations and countries that have gone this similar process. Ask yourself, if you get an opportunity to ask a question about your current condition, about your country, have that already planned out. Just do things you can do to prepare yourself. So the other thing, you know, from the psychology standpoint, you know, what I see, a lot of people are depending on this. This becomes like the only hope standing, and you know, that's very concerning. It's good to have hope. Expectation generates activation, you know. Exactly. It's a good thing in that regard, but at the same time, I remind people, don't put every aspect of your future, your hope into one thing. You know, what if this does not go the way it should? You know, that kind of, you have to do some kind of preparation in case something happens, you don't, you know, fall and crash. So I don't know if that makes sense. So everybody's looking at this, you know, national dialogue as a way forward, or just the only solution left in the country, because people are disappointed in many ways. From the economy standpoint, people are, you know, feeling frustrated and stressed out. From the political standpoint, up to this point, people have been disappointed. Things didn't work out the way some people expected. And, you know, there are a lot of questions going on. And, you know, with that in the background, a lot of people have put their total faith and hope in this one thing. And I always remind them, you know what, have kind of a way out kind of thinking, so that, you know, people won't be destroyed at the end if something didn't happen or didn't occur, or the process didn't go in the way in which it was intended. So those are the psychological aspects I'm picking up from talking to people and hearing people's conversation, and paying attention as a clinician, you know, to read where the nation is and what kind of thinking and processing going on.
We're still discussing this national dialogue. Now Ethiopia is set to enter into this national dialogue, you know, after so many years of narratives, propaganda from Ethiopia, from within and without, you know, and also from this ethnic-driven rule for some years. Yeah. So how can the national dialogue, you know, address all these issues, yeah, and how should it be, you know, tunneled into such matters?
That's another great question, Shifar. I appreciate you posing that question. And you know, let me say one thing: the person or the commission assigned to tackle this or facilitate this conversation and dialogue, and at the helm of that, you know, the commission is my best friend, the person I know very well, Professor Mesrin Araya, and the nation couldn't pick the right person for this purpose. And that's one of the things that gives me hope. And Professor Mesfin has done a lot of great things for the nation all his life with integrity and professional prowess and amazing, personal and professional life. And he was eagerly waiting for his retirement. He was counting down his retirement, and he always said, I cannot wait to get retired and get all these books that I put on my shelf, read get a chance to read them, to visit some historical site, talk to the people, the elders, in the nation, and even do some writing of myself. And he was saying, I'm going to visit some historical sites outside of Ethiopia. He was gearing up for that. All of a sudden, he got retired. Then this calling came upon his table and his hand. And sometimes for history to be made, a person and time has to come together.
Absolutely.
So for this to go on, and my friend Professor Mesfin to be elected to be leading that commission, it's just one reflection. He has no personal agenda. His agenda is to see the nation coming together, the peace and the flourishing in the nation. The nation progressing to its greatest destination. That's his goal. And as far as I know, and this is for sure, he drives his own car that he bought a long time ago with his own money, and he just lives in his own house. He even refused to have some guards, and he refused to have a driver in the car. So that's who he is. And he could have used the opportunity to do something personal, but he just said, you know what, I don't need to get entangled by my personal interest and the other people's interest groups. So the person, sometimes in America we say the person is the policy, all right? The individual is a policy. Sometimes you may have a policy already set up, but the person, the individual is what matters. So he is a policy by himself. He understands the importance of getting everybody involved. So with that, I wanted to say, yeah, there are a lot of narratives going on. And mostly, I don't think they are historically accurate, And, narratives comes out of the political interest, and people think that those are historical accounts. I don't know if that makes sense. Most of the narratives about groups and people that kind of emerge in the nation's psyche in the recent years, are they historically verified account, or are they the politically motivated narrative that's been fed to the nation so that people can get their emotion worked up and have their own kind of turf war because of that. So in this dialogue, I expect and I would like to see some historians, peer-reviewed, peer-approved historians, providing some kind of historical analysis about the nation and its history and the people in the region. All right, I'm sure this dialogue should involve, this is my recommendation, and having the movement, not like politicians, the cadres, pretending to be historian. No, the people that are respected by the profession, they have their peers' approval. Let them come out and underline the historical facts about the nation that people are fighting for. So whenever that knowledge comes up, that kind of has a way to kind of expose this narrative, politically narrative ideas. And I think that's this is my thought, my strong recommendation. That should be part of the dialogue. Let people find out from the true historians, professionals, about issues that are really becoming, very, very very sensitive for a lot of groups in the region. So one that I expect to happen, let people find out from historians. I'm not saying like politicians. I'm not talking about the narrative that's generated because of the politicians' interest. These are historians, well respected, academician, well respected by their own peer. Sometimes I have peers that I don't agree, but I cannot discount their scientific account. So I have respect for them. I listen, even though they're not like, people or academician that I really associate with. So the same thing for Ethiopia. There are a lot of historical accounts that are being in disagreement at this time, and let those professionals, historians, get a nice forum and platform to address some of the issues people are just fighting for. So that's one solution I see would this national dialogue bring some kind of consensus, understanding from the real historical standpoint.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you have region allocated based on the language, that's just a criteria, for regions, and it's a language based, yeah. Let's talk about it here. When they ask, are you, in your identification, that's where you have, just based on, the first language, and the region. And when you have that kind of construction, socially, that has a way naturally progress into us and them kind of mentality. When I am in group, there's in-group and out-group sense in the social psychology. When you kind of construct and bring people based on their identity, there are a lot of people who are outside of that identity, and this progress into naturally into some kind of anonymity, and people start like fighting. Okay, this is the group that took my resource. This is the group that subjugated me at some point. This is the group standing against my own interest. And that kind of sentiment kind of, brings up that focus to destroy the other group so that I can get, my need met, and I can get my resource protected. So this regionally language-based, identity-based kind of classification is a kind of a recipe at some point. It's a natural progression. That's just human psychology. When we are protected in a group setting, there are people in groups outside of that group. We automatically start like thinking about those people as enemy. Whenever you construct people in group, you're leaving some people outside of that group. So that's automatically, naturally progress into that kind of sentiment and understanding. At some point, people will start like going into each other, so that, for a group to prosper, the other group has to be destroyed and wiped out. So that's the natural human tendency as far as psychology is concerned. So Ethiopia is built in that, and what we see currently is the outcome of that sentiment. And I'm not surprised as a professional, but I'm also afraid if we cannot reverse this trend and address this issue and find other ways by which the society can be constructed, this nation will be, at some point dismantled in every, little group. So that's just a fear, at the same time, just a prediction how this is gonna end up.
What was sown in the past, I think the current generation is reaping, so this also should be addressed as part of the national dialogue, right?
Exactly. There, I always say there was purpose, and intention that really poured into the nation to what we call the social engineering has been done, for this purpose. the social engineering was done in order to divide people among themselves, to get people focused on their own interest and protect themselves and have that kind of protection, isolation going on. And that social engineering has achieved its purpose right now. And because of that, the Ethiopian, the national psyche has, disintegrated, and we see the result of that. So, this is the social fabric is a very, very fragile thing. Every generation has to protect that. And sometimes people are asking me, what happened to us Ethiopians? Well, what's going on? I say, yeah, what is going on is what you said. Things been sown through the years. The social engineering has been done through the years. Now this is the outcome. And Ethiopians are caring. What we know, Ethiopians are very sociable. They would like to come together in time of bad or good, and respectful to the elderly, respectful to the authority, and that's the Ethiopian psyche. But that social construct was attacked purposely in order to bring up this new kind of perception and understanding to take over the nation. So that's why I say any social fabric, any social construct is fragile unless we nurture it. Every generation, unless we see plants here, they need to be cared for, watered for, otherwise they won't grow. And the same thing is with the social construct. And instead of nurturing the good old time and the Ethiopian way of living, the people did for political interest engineered different kind of social perception, and we are living it now. We are seeing the fruit of that.
Yeah. Okay, Professor, let me ask you these two questions in one finally, and we'll wrap up our discussion. The first question would be, what important lessons can Ethiopia draw from other nations? And the other question would be, what's the way forward? Especially when it comes to this national dialogue, sowing important things for the next generation so that they will enjoy a better life.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the second one, let me start with that. The way forward is to also reconstruct the social perception, and instead of focusing on identity or what, the nation needs to focus on, just instead of who you are, and instead of going in that identity-focused kind of relationship into what does the nation, the group needs. And identity is very, very, I have a layer of identity. If you ask my patient, I'm a doctor. If you ask my student who I am, I'm a professor. If you ask my children, I'm Baba. If you ask my wife, I'm her beloved husband.
Multi-layered
yeah, if you ask my father, I'm a son, and my brothers. So we have a layer of identity, just layered of identity. So where we come from, that's not the only thing. The Ethiopians, they have to, for there should be a way forward, we have to understand that does not, where my origin, what kind of language I speak, does not define me fully and totally. It could be one thing, but the least thing. So for way forward, we have to come out of that kind of negative thinking and minimizing our person even. And just minimizing the person, just this whole person. The person can be gone anywhere and be successful and have, multilingual, I'm a professor and a professional in America. It is not because of the Amharic word I speak, it's the English word. And I've never taught, or nobody asked me, this is my language, get over it. And so when people are localized by their one thing only, I think it's just an injustice for that group, that person, minimizing, localizing, putting them in one corner, even though they have capacity to reach out to the nations not only for Ethiopia, for Africa, and for the rest of the world. So the way forward, I encourage people to question that kind of identity-based, just localization, to say, you know what, more than that. We are, as a group, we are more than the language we speak. We are more than, the origin or the group we came from. So they have to break that barrier and come out of that. So that's just one thing I see for the nation, and also in conjunction with this, the dialogue, they have to come with that kind of understanding. A lot of people say Ethiopia have just more than 80, tribes and languages and group people. That's not the only Ethiopian thing, and there are other nations that have more than what Ethiopia has, as far as language numbers and group and people, and they live well. India and China, Nigeria. So let's get over this. We Ethiopians have, of course, that's just the beauty of Ethiopia, to have like 18 spoken, more than 18 spoken language. That's what makes us beautiful as Ethiopians. But we're not the only one as a nation, and there are nations who have more than language that Ethiopians have, but they live together coherently and successfully as a nation. We have to learn that, and also to understand we have history, but the history is good or bad. We have to learn. We are making history at this time, but what kind of history? It's just something to be judged in the future. And the people that were in the history in the past, they were human beings. They answered the question that time raised for them within their capacity and understanding what they thought would be great for their time. And it doesn't make sense sometimes for me to judge looking back and looking, what happened in the history. So let's leave the history for historians. There are a lot to be listened, picked up as a nation. We have a great history, but at the same time, there are, history that's been heartbreaking for generation up to this point that needs to be addressed in a way. So the lesson is, let's come together. This is the opportunity, and revive that sense of Ethiopianism and the proud that we have as a nation. And I think that will be a way forward as well.
Wow, what a wonderful idea you raised, Professor. Thank you so much for your time, for those wonderful ideas.
So I appreciate it again, Shafara, and your team, your group coming here, give me this opportunity to share a few things and what I have, and appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as usual for your company so far. Until I see you next time with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shafara. Stay safe and take care.